Hey everyone, so today I will be doing the Why Haven't I Read These Books Yet tag. I was actually tagged by 4 people to do this tag, and the first person that tagged me was Janelle, and then Gloria, and then Holly and Amanda, and I'll link their videos down below for this tag. They were really fun to watch, as well as the originals if I can find them. I'm not quite sure exactly who did the original, but I will try to find the video. So as I was saying, I was tagged by these 4 lovely ladies, and I think it's really fun to look at books that we've owned for a very long time and still haven't read them and talk about why. For a lot of bibliophiles, collecting books is just as much of a hobby as reading them, and so we don't always read all the books we collect. And so that's definitely the case for me. I've accumulated so many books that I just haven't read yet, but in the last couple years, I have gotten better at unhauling, and a lot of the books that I've owned for a long time, I kind of sat down and decided if I still wanted to keep them, if there was a chance that I would want to read them in the future. A lot of them I decided to just get rid of, and if I am interested in ever picking them up, I would just pick them up at the library. So a lot of the books that I currently own that I have not yet read, I've only had for the last few years. Most of the books that I've had for more than 4 or 5 years, they're already unhauled. But there are still some books that I've had for quite a while and I still haven't read them. So the first question is a classic book that you have not yet read, and I have a few to share for this. I have 2 Charles Dickens books here that I've had for so long and still haven't read them. First we have Bleak House, and this is the vintage edition. It's really, really pretty. I love the newsprint kind of look to it. This I got a really long time ago at Indigo, and I kept meaning to pick it up, but then I started following along with the Dickens versus Tolstoy book club that Emmy and Carolyn host on their channels, and they have been reading the Dickens books in order of publication, and so I kind of decided to do that as well. So this one is just, fallen on the back burner because it is one of his later books, and so I just haven't gotten to it yet. And I'm pretty sure this book is on the list for next year, so hopefully in 2023 I'll get this read, but I did mean to read it. It's just one of those books that I kept pushing back because of its size, for one, and also because I, wanted to start reading Charles Dickens books in publication order. So this one I just haven't gotten to yet. And then same idea with A Tale of Two Cities. I will get to this once I've, gotten to it on the list of Dickens books in publication order, but yeah, just haven't gotten to it, kept pushing it back, and that's okay because I will eventually get to it. Next we have an American classic, that is Uncle Tom's Cabin, and this is one that I've had for so long, but every time I think about picking it up, I'm just not interested. It's just, I don't know what it is about it that just doesn't draw me in. It does not call to me. So it's been sitting on my shelves. I haven't had an interest in picking it up, but I still haven't wanted to unhaul it. For some reason, I still want to keep it, even though I'm not interested in reading it. So I'm just holding on to hope that one day I will have an interest in picking this up, because as of now, I could care less. A classic that I have not read yet, just because of how scared I am of its size, it is a brick. That is Les Mis by Victor Hugo. This is huge. This is just, how many pages is it? About 1,200 pages. That is massive. So this is one of those books that I will need to pace myself with. It is also on my list of books that I need to read by the end of this year. So I feel like I should really get started on it and then just pace myself the next few months because it's scary. I've heard it's quite dense and not the easiest of reads, so I am nervous, but hopefully this year, this fall, fingers crossed, I'll be able to pick this up. But yeah, I just haven't because of its size. It just scared me. So we'll see what I think of it when I actually get to it. Next we have a fiction book, and I have 2 for this. The first one is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This book I think is translated from Spanish, and it's set in Barcelona during the 40s, and it has to do with antiquarian books, which is something that I really love. And just reading the back and hearing other people talk about this book, it's definitely my type of book. It's something that I think I would really enjoy, and it's said to also have gothic elements, which I love. And so for some reason, I've just not picked it up. I've had it for so long. It's been sitting on my shelves. Every fall, I look at it and I say, okay, this fall, I will read this book. And I'm saying it again, hopefully, this fall, I will read this book. But I think it's one of those books where I'm scared to read it because I'm scared I won't like it. And when a book is super hyped, I always have that fear of picking it up, especially if it's a genre that I love and I hear people raving about it, and it just makes me even more nervous to pick it up because I'm scared that I won't love it as much and then I'll just be disappointed. So I think that's the reason I haven't picked this up yet, but other than that, I honestly think I would really enjoy it. Another book I've had for I think 3 or 4 years is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Another very, very hyped book. It is set in the winter, so I keep meaning to read it in the winter, but winter tends to be very busy with school, and this just was never prioritized, ever. So it's still unread, and maybe this winter will be the winter that I read it. I guess we shall see. I think I'll like it. I just never got around to it, so another book that I need to get to soon. Question 3 is a nonfiction book. And at first I thought I wouldn't have an answer for this because I didn't think I owned any nonfiction. I'm not a nonfiction person, but then I looked at my night table and I realized I've collected a few C.S. Lewis books that I have not read, and they are nonfiction. I think all of them are nonfiction. And so we have Mere Christianity, which is iconic, and I've been meaning to read it for so long. I even kind of divided up the book with tabs to, I guess, have a set amount of pages to read every day within a month, and I still haven't picked it up because I'm scared. The reason I'm scared is because this is like a foundational book for Christianity, and so many people love it, and I've heard that it's so deep and just blows your mind, and I think I'm just scared of all of that like going over my head and me just not getting it. I don't know. I'm just scared of this book, but I've heard amazing things, and I think it would be an incredible experience to read it, but it's just that fear, you know? It's just that fear, so one day. And then the other 3 C.S. Lewis books are A Grief Observed, and this one is extremely short, so I might even start with this and just kind of see what his writing style is like. It's one thing to read like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like that was written for children, but it's another to read his nonfiction. And then we also have The Four Loves, and this one sounds really interesting actually. It goes over the 4 different types of loves, like the categories: affection, friendship, eros, and charity, and this one sounds very, very interesting, so curious about that one. And then another one that I've heard amazing things about is Miracles, and this one's a longer one as well, so I don't know when I'll get to this, but I'm nervous, I'm intimidated, but we'll see. I know that I won't regret reading his books for sure. I'm scared. Another foundational book for the Christian faith is The Pursuit of God by Tozer, and this one also has The Purpose of Man and The Crucified Life. I have not read any of these. I've had this book sitting on my night table for a long time, just haven't gotten to it because I'm scared. And nonfiction already intimidates me, but adding the layer of like theology and all of that just scares me even more. Maybe if I buddy read it with someone, it would be easier. So if any of you are interested in reading The Pursuit of God, let me know. You know, I can read it and do a discussion after the different chapters, and you guys can also participate, something informal. So yeah, if any of you guys are interested in reading The Pursuit of God with me, please let me know in the comments. Question 4 is a genre book, so I went with a couple different genres here. I have a thriller and then I have a historical fantasy. The thriller is The One by John Marrs, and this is quite an old book. It came out a while ago, and I've seen a lot of people say very good things about it, and so I picked it up at a thrift store, not really knowing what it was about, but from what I do know, it has to do with DNA testing and finding your soulmate through DNA, and so that sounds like a really interesting concept. I just haven't picked it up because I haven't really been drawn to it. It's just one of those shelf sitters, you know, they just sit there content. I don't feel the need to read it, but I do own it, and so eventually I want to get to it. If you have read this, please let me know what your thoughts were. And the historical fantasy is The Golem and the Jinni, and this is by Helen Wecker. I've heard that this is inspired by Jewish folklore. It's set in New York in the 1800s, I think. Yes, 1899. I heard it's very atmospheric and perfect to read in the winter, so I might get to it this winter, but it's another one of those books that have just been sitting on my shelves. I haven't felt the need to pick it up or the desire. I have heard good things, I just don't prioritize it. I really like to read seasonally, and so I kept meaning to read this in the winter, but then winter would roll around, I wouldn't get to it, and then I would say, okay, next winter, I wouldn't get to it next winter, and so it just kept getting pushed back, but maybe this winter will be the time that I read this book. We'll see. I don't really have any expectations going into it. I'm pretty open-minded, so we'll see what happens. And then the last question is the book that you've owned for the longest time. And I do have 3 for this. 2 of them I've actually had since I was, I think, 13 or 14. And I had absolutely zero interest in reading them. They were handed down to me from my mom. She got them from her mom. They're very special to me, and so I do plan on keeping them forever. But I just never really had the interest in reading them until recently. especially now that I've gotten into more classics. All three of these are classics, but the two that were handed down to me from my mom are Ben-Hur by Lew Wallace and Quo Vadis by Henryk. I don't know how to say that last name. I think he's Polish, so yeah, I can't read that. Anyways, these two books, Quo Vadis and Ben-Hur, these are both historical fiction set around the early church. So Ben-Hur, I'm pretty sure, is set when Jesus was alive and his ministry was going, and then Quo Vadis is set during Nero's reign in Rome and the early church and like the persecution and everything. I've seen and adore both adaptations for these two books, the Charlton Heston one from the 50s and then the Quo Vadis adaptation also from the 50s. I love them so much. I grew up watching them, and I have had these books for so long and was content with just watching the movies and never reading the books. But as I've gotten older and kind of gotten into classics more, I do eventually want to get to these. But yeah, I've had these books for at least 8 years, and we'll see when I actually get to these, but they are special as well. They're from my grandma to my mom and then my mom to me, so they are very special. And then the last book is a book that my mom found for me at a thrift store, and this was before I really got into classics, and that is Great Expectations by Dickens. She got this for me, I think around 7 years ago. It was towards the end of high school, and I really liked how it looked, and so I was excited to have like a decor piece for my desk. I wasn't too keen on reading it. When she got me this book, she also got me Pride and Prejudice in the same edition, but just with a different design and color. They're from the 80s, and I just love everything about them. I love how they look. I love the gold sprayed edges. But again, it just became a decor piece. I had no interest in reading it until I started reading classics, which was very recent. And then again, because it's Charles Dickens, I haven't gotten to it yet because it just hasn't come up yet in the order that I'm reading the books. And so I will get to it soon. I do have a paperback edition of this because this one is very stiff. It's very hard to read. So I did get a paperback, but this is very special and very pretty, and I love it so much. So another book that I've had for so long, one of the oldest books that I currently own that I just haven't read yet. All right, so those are my answers for the questions for this tag, and the last, I guess, prompt was to tag someone, and I'm not going to tag anyone in particular for this video, but if you have books sitting on your shelves that you have not read and you've owned them for so long, and you'd like to share why you haven't read them, please consider yourselves tagged. I'd love to see your answers for this video. And if you don't have a channel, please leave your answers for these questions below. I'd love to know what books you own that you have not yet read and why. So that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It means so much to me, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.